For most of human history, Antarctica has existed in our imagination as a frozen, distant wilderness, a place defined not by memory, but by absence, a continent of storms, silence, and death. Yet long before the first explorers etched their names into its icy edges, long before the world knew a place called Antarctica even existed, something extraordinary happened at the bottom of the earth. Something that would echo across millennia, whispered through ancient maps, submerged structures, and fragments of stories scattered like broken constellations across human civilization. There was a time when Antarctica was not frozen. This single truth, documented today by geologists but long concealed beneath miles of ice, shatters the simple narratives we've accepted about our planet's past. Scientists know that Antarctica was once a lush, temperate world filled with forests, rivers, and life, but what they do not often mention, or perhaps cannot yet explain, is the possibility that this ancient paradise may have been more than a landscape. It may have been home to something advanced, something forgotten. Imagine a land without ice, where the sun traced long golden arcs across a sky untouched by snow. A continent wrapped in greenery, warmed by ocean currents, and crowned by the Gamburtsev Mountains, a range as tall as the Alps, yet now buried under 2 miles of ice, hidden like a secret the Earth refuses to reveal. These mountains are a geological impossibility, a phantom range with no clear origin, standing where they should not be. Their peaks, now entombed, may once have been visible to eyes long lost to time. And therein lies the mystery. If Antarctica was once habitable, then who or what might have walked its ancient valleys? As the world warms and satellites peel back layers of ice through radar and resonance, the continent has begun to whisper. Strange geometric formations traced beneath the ice. Massive linear structures lying too symmetrical to be natural. And perhaps most unsettling of all, ancient maps, drawn centuries before Antarctica was officially discovered, that depict the continent clearly and without ice. How did medieval and Renaissance cartographers know the shape of a land hidden under frozen darkness for tens of thousands of years? Why did the maps of Piri, Reis, and Oronteus Finaeus outline shorelines that have not seen daylight since the last interglacial period? And why do those shorelines match modern seismic surveys with uncanny precision? These questions pull us into a truth both magnificent and unsettling. Humanity may not be the first civilization to map the Earth. The story begins at a time when ice did not choke the land. Around 100,000 years ago, give or take several thousand, Antarctica experienced periods of warmth. Not mild warmth, but full ecological flourishing. Enough to melt vast sheets of ice, enough to expose the continent's coastlines, enough to allow life to thrive in a world we no longer recognize. Geological records show plants, flowing water, temperate climates. But geology alone does not explain structure, geometry, or intent. In ancient myths around the world, there are stories of a southern land, a white continent that was once green, a kingdom swallowed by cold, a civilization erased by a cosmic shift, a pole wandering, a global flood. From the Greeks to the Egyptians, from the Polynesians to the Dogon, echoes of a southern place appear like fragments of a dream humanity can't quite remember. Could these myths be memories? Could Antarctica have once been the cradle of something primordial, a place where knowledge flourished during a window of warmth, now lost in the cycles of Earth's shifting axis? The continent's own body tells a story. Subglacial lakes warm from geothermal heat, magnetic anomalies stretching across hundreds of miles, buried mountain ridges too symmetrical to blame on tectonics alone, all hidden beneath an ice sheet that acts like a vault door, sealing away 14 million square kilometers of potential prehistory. If even a fraction of the rumors, radar scans, and anomalous signatures prove true, Antarctica may be more than the end of the world. It may be its beginning. And yet, the greatest mystery still lies in those ancient maps, drawn with precision no medieval navigator should have possessed. The Piri Reis map of 1513 shows not only the coastline of Antarctica, but does so without ice, matching 20th century seismic readings. The Oronteus Finaeus map of 1531 depicts rivers, mountains, and a near-exact outline of a deglaciated continent. These maps should not exist, not unless their makers were copying from something older, much older. If there was a civilization capable of mapping a world we believed was unexplored, then its presence changes everything we think we know about human origins. It suggests a chapter missing from our story, a chapter written before the ice returned, before global cataclysms reset the Earth, before memory fractured and scattered across the cultures that survived. What could such a civilization have known? What did they leave behind? And why does Antarctica, more than any other continent, feel like a vault waiting for the right moment to open? Today, scientists continue to drill, scan, and probe the ice, finding anomalies they cannot quite explain, structures they cannot yet classify. But the continent remains silent, locked beneath temperatures that can freeze steel, a sleeping giant with a heartbeat buried under glacial stone. And yet somewhere deep beneath those miles of ice, there may still be answers. Answers older than history, answers older than humanity as we understand it. Because Antarctica was not always a graveyard of storms. Once, long ago, it was alive. But what came next would change everything. That single thought echoes like a pulse beneath the frozen crust of the southern continent. A quiet reminder that Antarctica's story is far from simple. When we step beyond the opening mysteries and dive into the deeper layers of its ancient past, we begin to realize that the ice itself behaves like a reluctant historian, preserving, concealing, and compressing a narrative that refuses to die. And within this narrative lies the possibility of a civilization erased not by time, but by cataclysm. To understand how such a civilization could have existed, we have to strip Antarctica of its modern identity. Forget the blinding white deserts, the katabatic winds that scream across the plateaus, the endless nights of winter. Instead, picture a continent alive with greenery. Roughly 100,000 years ago, during one of Earth's interglacial oscillations, vast stretches of Antarctica were ice-free. Not partially, not just the coasts. Entire regions, from valleys to mountain ranges, basked in climates similar to the forests of modern-day New Zealand. Scientists have retrieved pollen, plant fibers, and even the remnants of ancient soil trapped deep within the ice. Remnants that do not belong to a frozen world. They belong to a temperate one. Climate models show rivers flowing across what is now an endless shield of blue-white emptiness. Lakes shimmered where today only blizzards reign. And most astonishingly, the Gamburtsev Mountains, now completely hidden, once towered over lush landscapes. These mountains defy logic. Their peaks remain as sharp as the Alps, despite being millions of years old. Erosion should have worn them down long ago, yet something shielded them, protected them, kept them in a strangely youthful condition. The most accepted explanation is that the ice cap itself preserved them, but that narrative ignores the deeper implications. If the Gamburtsev Range was exposed during previous warm periods, why does it still look untouched? What forces kept it pristine? Some researchers, quietly and cautiously, suggest an answer. These mountains may have been encased in ice far more recently than we assume. If so, the timeline of Antarctic glaciation must be rewritten, and with it, the potential existence of civilizations that lived and thrived before the final descent of the ice. And recent discoveries only deepen the mystery. For years, radar surveys have revealed rectangular voids beneath the vast East Antarctic ice sheet, perfectly straight trenches stretching for miles, triangular formations aligned with cardinal directions. These are not patterns created by wind or erosion. They are shapes of intention, shapes that hint at architecture buried beyond reach. Large-scale scans also show something extraordinary beneath the ice. Structures that resemble massive foundations, geometric in layout, arranged in a grid-like formation inconsistent with natural geology. The official explanations categorize them as subglacial anomalies, a vague term that leaves more questions than answers. But to those who look deeper, who find the courage to consider what the world was before the ice, these anomalies are possibilities. Possibilities of cities swallowed by snow, temples crushed under glaciers, a civilization pushed into darkness by a cataclysm so swift, so total, that it erased nearly all traces of its existence, except those few hints the ice itself could not hide. And then there are the maps. The ancient world should not have known the shape of Antarctica. It should not have known the height of its mountains, the length of its coastlines, or the curves of its rivers. But the maps of Piri Reis, Oronteus Finaeus, Haji Ahmed, and Boache de Neuville show precisely those details. These cartographers, working centuries before Antarctica's official discovery in 1820, drew something impossible, a continent without ice. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513 from older sources, shows South America smoothly curving into a landmass that modern seismic surveys confirm is Antarctica's northern coastline. What's more unsettling is its accuracy. The map aligns almost perfectly with the deglaciated terrain discovered by 20th century researchers. Oronteus Finaeus, in 1531, produced a map even more detailed, showing river systems, coastal elevations, and interior mountain ranges with a confidence no one of his era should have possessed. These maps suggest something profound. Someone knew Antarctica. Someone mapped it. Someone saw it before the ice swallowed it whole. But who? The conventional academic answer is that these maps were based on speculative geography or misunderstood classical sources. Yet speculation does not produce accurate coastlines. Misinterpretation does not replicate subglacial river paths that modern scientists discovered only through advanced radar. These maps feel like memories, not fantasies. To imagine the civilization behind those memories, we must return to a period when Earth was shifting violently. Climate cycles were unstable. Temperatures rose and fell with global consequences. Sea levels surged. Magnetic poles drifted. Entire ecosystems collapsed in waves. It was during one of these oscillations, roughly 100,000 years ago, that Antarctica likely stood at the precipice of a dramatic transformation. The warm period ended, the cold returned, and the ice came down like a final curtain. If a civilization existed there, advanced enough to map continents, erect megalithic structures, or chart the stars, it would have faced a cataclysm on a scale we can hardly imagine. A global flood, a pole shift, a sudden freeze capturing cities in a single generation. The kind of event myths around the world describe not as gradual change, but as divine punishment or cosmic disaster. Could these legends be fragments of Antarctica's final days? Some say yes. The Hopi speak of worlds destroyed by ice. The Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime describes southern lands swallowed by cold. The Egyptians spoke of Zep Tepi, the first time, an age destroyed before the rise of dynasties. The Greeks told stories of a vast southern land, Terra Australis, lost in catastrophe. These stories spread across cultures that never met, separated by oceans and time, yet echoing the same core motif. A southern civilization undone by frozen doom. Modern science often dismisses these parallels as coincidence or symbolic storytelling. But what if they are memories? What if humanity's oldest myths are the flickering remnants of something once real? Moments witnessed by distant ancestors who saw Antarctica before the final freeze. As the ice sheet thickened, locking the continent into a deep sleep, it sealed everything beneath it. Structures, artifacts, bodies, histories, and mysteries that today's instruments can sense but not touch. Antarctica is a vault, and the ice is its gatekeeper. And though we have only begun to press against that gate, already we see the hints of a truth more ancient than our species. But the true revelations, the ones that challenge the very origin of civilization, lie deeper still. And the next step into this forgotten world begins where Antarctica's buried interior meets the impossible heartbeat of its hidden mountains. Because what lies beneath the Gamburtsev Range is something no one expected. And this is where the real story begins. Because when we echo the last line back into the frozen silence of Antarctica, we discover that the continent is not just hiding fragments of a forgotten world, it is hiding something alive in its geological memory, something pulsing beneath the ice like the heartbeat of an ancient titan. The Gamburtsev Mountains, entombed under nearly 2 miles of ice, are more than a mountain range. They are an anomaly so deep, so complex, that scientists still cannot fully explain how they exist. And it is within that mystery that the oldest secrets of the southern continent begin to unfold. To understand the magnitude of the Gamburtsev puzzle, imagine drilling down through ice older than civilization itself. Imagine passing through frozen layers that record Earth's climate shifts like chapters in a book. Warm periods, cold periods, sudden shocks. Then imagine hitting a vast, jagged spine of peaks higher than anything expected, stretching for 750 miles under a world of white. Peaks with sharp ridges, valleys that once echoed with water, geological forms so pristine they seem young, yet science insists they are ancient. This contradiction has haunted researchers since the mountains were first detected in 1958 during a Soviet mission. The team expected a flat plateau beneath the ice. Instead, their instruments traced mountains that should not have survived erosion. Their slopes were too steep, their presence too improbable. For such mountains to stay preserved, they would need to be shielded, protected by something. But if they had been exposed during interglacial periods, why do they appear untouched by millions of years of wind and rain? Unless the exposure was brief, unless the last time these mountains saw daylight was not millions, but tens of thousands of years ago. And if that is true, then Antarctica's warm periods, the ones that melted its ice and revealed its landscapes, may have lasted long enough for life not only to survive, but to thrive. Long enough for a civilization to rise, record its world, and vanish beneath a sudden return of ice. Inside the Gamburtsev Range lies one of the most enigmatic features of the continent, Lake Vostok, a massive subglacial lake sealed beneath a 4-kilometer ice lid. It has been isolated for so long that life found there could be extraterrestrial in concept. But what scientists rarely discuss publicly is the strange magnetic anomaly detected near the lake, a massive, persistent distortion in the geophysical readings, shaped almost like a structure, rectangular in places, with sharp angles no natural formation should possess. It is as if something metallic or architectural rests beneath the layers, warping the magnetic field in ways that still defy full explanation. Some researchers have proposed meteor impacts. Others suggest unusual geology or volcanic formations. But a small group, cautious, quiet, often marginalized, believes the anomaly may be artificial, not recent, not modern, but ancient, far beyond our recorded history. The ice protects whatever lies beneath. It hides it perfectly, and yet radar cannot help but reveal the faint outline of something constructed. This is where the whispers begin. Deep ice scanners have traced what appear to be linear corridors stretching from the anomaly toward deeper parts of the range. Perfectly straight, perfectly parallel. Natural features rarely behave so politely. Even stranger are the patterns detected near the supposed shoreline of Lake Vostok. Shapes resembling terraces, foundations, and steps descending into the bedrock. These patterns do not belong to a glacial landscape. They belong to intention. If there was a prehistoric civilization in Antarctica, the Gamburtsev Mountains may have been its heart, a center of activity, perhaps even a capital. The range would have been high, sheltered, and warmer than the lowlands. Streams could have flowed from its peaks. Valleys could have supported agriculture or settlements. But once the ice returned, everything changed. Structures would have been crushed, buried, encrypted beneath a colossal weight of snow that hardened into ice. preserving only the faintest echoes of what once stood. But the most compelling clue does not come from ice cores or radar scans. It comes from ancient cartography. The Oronteus Finaeus map depicts the Gamburtsev region with river systems feeding into what appear to be large inland lakes. One of these, placed almost exactly where Lake Vostok lies today, is drawn with clear shorelines. This map predates modern Antarctic exploration by nearly 300 years. How could a Renaissance cartographer know the geography of a land buried for tens of millennia? And why do his drawn rivers match not today's frozen landscape, but the subglacial terrain detected by modern instruments? This precision suggests access to a source, an ancient map, older than recorded history, created when Antarctica was free of ice. If such a source existed, it would imply the presence of a civilization capable of global mapping, astronomical measurement, and sophisticated navigation long before the accepted timeline of human development. This civilization, whatever its name, must have witnessed the final transformation of Antarctica. It must have experienced the Great Freeze, the shifting of Earth's axis, the sudden collapse of warmth into endless winter. Ancient myths often speak of a world before the cold, a golden age crushed by a cosmic turning. Could these stories be distant memories of Antarctica's last breath as a living world? The collapse would have been catastrophic. As global temperatures plummeted, snowfall increased exponentially. Storms raged across the land, building ice layer by layer until entire cities, if they existed, were consumed in darkness. Valleys disappeared, rivers froze mid-flow, structures buckled under the weight. What survivors remained would have fled north carrying fragments of their knowledge, fragments that would eventually seed the myths and symbols we still recognize today. Perhaps this is why so many ancient cultures describe gods or teachers coming from the south, from lands swallowed by ice, from a world lost beneath frozen seas. The more we follow the clues, the more the narrative aligns. Antarctica was not always the end of the world. In a different age, it may have been the center of something extraordinary. Its mountains, its rivers, its lakes, and its landscapes all point to a forgotten chapter of Earth's story, a chapter sealed, literally, in ice. And so we return to the heartbeat beneath the Gamburtsev Mountains, that rhythmic pulse detected through subtle shifts in ice density and geothermal flow. Scientists call it subglacial movement, but some whisper a different interpretation, the slow, steady settling of structures or caverns still intact beneath the ice. The heart of Antarctica is not dead, it is waiting, and as we journey deeper into this mystery, we approach a revelation that will challenge everything we believe about the world before the world we know, a revelation buried far below the frozen silence, where ancient light has never touched. But the next discovery, just beyond the edge of this frozen mountain range, is even stranger, and it will change the course of our story once more. Because when we cross the invisible boundary beyond the Gamburtsev range, we encounter something so vast, so unsettling, that even the instruments designed to penetrate the thickest ice hesitate as if aware they are trespassing on forbidden ground. This is where science meets myth, where geology blurs into architecture, and where the Antarctic ice sheet reveals the faint outlines of what may be humanity's oldest secret, a submerged city built long before the world froze. The first hints appeared in the early 2000s, when high-resolution ice-penetrating radar was deployed to map the subglacial terrain around Princess Elizabeth Land. The intention was simple, to study the flow of the ice sheet, not to uncover mysteries. But the radar returned data that made no geological sense. Beneath nearly 4,000 meters of compacted ice lay patterns that repeated with disturbing precision. Massive rectangular shapes, perfectly spaced parallel lines, clusters of right angles stretching across an area twice the size of Manhattan. Nature does not build straight lines on this scale. Ice does not carve perfect rectangles. Wind and erosion do not create architectural geometry 1 mile beneath the surface. And yet there it was, a ghostly blueprint embedded in the radar echoes, a silent fingerprint left by something that should not exist. Researchers tried to fit the data into known categories. They suggested subglacial volcanism, tectonic fractures, or unusual rock formations. But every explanation fell apart when confronted with the repeating symmetry. These forms were deliberate, intentional, as if the ice had entombed the ruins of a city built during an age no textbook recognizes. And so a question emerged. What if Antarctica, before the ice settled into its eternal reign, was home not only to life, but to civilization? If this city is real, if it ever stood in the open air of a warm green Antarctica, then it must have existed during one of Earth's warm interglacial periods. The last major period of sustained warmth occurred approximately 120,000 years ago, when temperatures were far higher than today. Sea levels were elevated by several meters, and vast portions of the Antarctic coast were free of ice. It was a window of time long enough for something extraordinary to develop, something capable of surviving in a unique, rich environment, one illuminated by months of sun and wrapped in powerful ocean currents that created an unexpectedly mild climate. A civilization born not in the deserts of the Middle East, nor the jungles of Mesoamerica, but in the southernmost continent, beneath the light of a tilted sun. The radar patterns found beneath Princess Elizabeth Land stretch outward in what appears to be a grid, a central complex, surrounded by radial corridors or avenues, reminiscent of city planning found in the ancient world, and yet predating all known urban development by tens of thousands of years. Some structures appear staggeringly large, large enough to suggest monumental architecture. If these are real buildings, they would rival the pyramids of Giza in scale and surpass the megalithic works of Göbekli Tepe and Tiwanaku in age. But how could such structures exist in a place we believed was uninhabitable? The answer may lie in Antarctica's forgotten climate. During warm interglacials, the continent's coastlines would have been lush, with forests of beech and moss growing where ice now dominates. Rivers flowed freely, rain fell, and geothermal heat beneath the crust warmed specific pockets of land, especially near the Gamburtsev Mountains. These geothermal zones could have created temperate microclimates, perfect for habitation. But habitation alone does not explain the scale of the structures. It does not explain the precision in layout or the magnitude of the radar anomalies. To build something so enduring, so large, a civilization would need knowledge of engineering, mapping, and architecture far more sophisticated than what humans were believed to possess 100 millennia ago, which brings us back to the ancient maps. The Piri, Reis, and Oronteus Finaeus maps not only depict Antarctica without ice, but indicate rivers, mountains, and coastlines that mirror the subglacial features discovered only in the modern era. These maps, drawn in the 1500s, claim to be based on far older sources that may have originated from civilizations long buried, long erased, long forgotten. If these maps are indeed remnants of knowledge passed down from survivors of an Antarctic catastrophe, then the city beneath the ice could be the origin point of that knowledge. A metropolis that once stood proud beneath the southern stars, later shattered by a sudden freeze. A freeze that may have come rapidly, shockingly rapidly. Ice core data shows that Antarctica can shift from warm to frozen in as little as a decade. A global climate event, a pole shift, or a sudden collapse of ocean currents could plunge the continent into instantaneous winter, encasing everything in snow and then ice. Buildings would be buried in just a few centuries. Civilizations would vanish in a geological heartbeat. And if survivors fled north, they would carry fragments of memory, the memory of a land lost to ice, of a catastrophe that reshaped the world, of knowledge too precious to let die. These fragments might have inspired the legends of gods descending from the heavens, of sages who brought astronomy and architecture to early humans, of teachers who knew the stars with impossible precision. Perhaps these were not gods at all, but refugees of an Antarctic civilization. As we return to the radar patterns, another anomaly emerges. Beneath the central cluster of geometric structures lies a deep, resonant void, a cavern stretching for miles, too large and too symmetrical to be a natural formation. It appears to have been hollowed out intentionally. Its ceiling is uniform. Its base is flat. It mirrors the architecture of ancient subterranean chambers found across the world. It is, by every measurement, a hall older than the ice that covers it, a hall that may still hold artifacts, inscriptions, or technology of a civilization erased from history. And what lies beyond that hall? More corridors, more chambers, a network extending into the darkness like the arteries of a buried titan. If we could reach this place, if we could drill through 4 kilometers of ice, we might finally understand who lived there, what they built, and why they vanished. But the ice is both barrier and guardian. Antarctica gives nothing easily. It protects its secrets with the patience of eternity. Yet the city beneath the southern stars is not the only anomaly. There is another farther west that may be even older, even stranger, and it will take us deeper into the heart of the forgotten world. Because what lies beneath the ice is not one city. It may be many, and the next discovery will question the very origins of human civilization as we know it. Because as we move westward, following the faint electronic whispers that travel through the ancient ice, we leave behind the city beneath Princess Elizabeth Land and enter a realm even more perplexing, more unsettling, as if Antarctica itself is guiding us toward its deepest secret. Here, beneath the vast expanse of the West Antarctic ice sheet, scientists have detected something that should not exist, not beneath the snow, not beneath the ice, not in the memory of a world that has forgotten its earliest stories. It begins with a void so massive that radar scans struggled to map its edges, a cavern stretching hundreds of meters high, kilometers long, and so perfectly shaped that the first teams who saw the data believed it to be an error. It was only after months of repeated measurements taken from satellites, aircraft, and ground instruments that the truth became undeniable. Beneath the thickest, oldest ice of Antarctica rests a labyrinth, a network of interconnected chambers, hallways, and domed structures arranged in a pattern too organized to be natural. This subterranean complex lies near the Bird Basin, an area thought to be geologically quiet. Yet the radar scans show something that mirrors human architecture, or perhaps something older and more sophisticated than human architecture. Circular chambers branching into rectangular corridors, elevations that span multiple levels, and in the deepest parts, triangular voids that resemble the precision-cut stone halls found in ancient sites across the world. But these Antarctic voids are older, far older. The ice covering them is between 90,000 and 110,000 years old, meaning whatever lies beneath was built or formed before the final glaciation swallowed the continent whole. If this labyrinth is artificial, then it predates all known civilizations by tens of thousands of years. It predates pyramids, ziggurats, megaliths, and even the earliest agricultural societies. It would suggest a world where architecture, engineering, and monumental construction existed long before humans were supposedly capable of such feats. And it raises a chilling possibility. Perhaps humanity did not begin in the fertile crescents of warm lands, but inherited forgotten knowledge from a civilization erased by the cold. The anomalies inside the West Antarctic labyrinth deepen the mystery. High-density scans reveal sections of the walls that are smoother than natural rock, almost polished. Some areas show strange layered compositions, as if built from a material unknown to modern geology. Other sections appear to be reinforced by geometric patterns reminiscent of honeycomb structures, designs seen in advanced engineering for maximum strength and minimum weight. How could Paleolithic humans, with stone tools and nomadic lifestyles, have constructed something like this? The answer is simple. They couldn't have. Not with their technology, not with their population size, not with their scattered migrations. So if humans could not have built these structures, then who did? Some propose an earlier branch of hominid evolution, a species that rose, advanced, and perished before Homo sapiens emerged. Others suggest a human culture far older and more capable than archaeology currently acknowledges, a lost chapter erased by the violent climatic cycles of the Ice Age. A few, stepping beyond the boundaries of conventional science, whisper about an intelligence that did not originate from Earth at all. But no matter which interpretation you choose, the implications are profound, because the labyrinth is not alone. Across the continent, beneath layers of ice that vary in age and density, similar anomalies appear. Not identical, some are larger, some smaller, some more complex, but unmistakably related. It is as if Antarctica once housed a network of settlements, or temples, or research centers connected by purpose and design. A system of underground structures stretching across a continent that was once warm, bright, and alive. And this pattern aligns eerily with ancient myths from around the world. In Greek tradition, the lost land of Hyperborea was described as lying far to the south, home to a race of advanced beings who lived in perpetual sunlight. In Hindu texts, the vanished realm of Shvetadvipa, the White Island, was a place of purity and brilliance, said to be accessible only to enlightened beings. In the legends of the Mapuche of Chile, a southern land existed before the Great Cold, inhabited by ancestors who fled north when the world froze. Even the esoteric writings of early explorers speak of a civilization beneath the ice, a civilization swallowed but not destroyed by time. Could these stories be cultural memories of a real place? A place preserved in myth because its people lived in an age so distant, its downfall so catastrophic, that only fragments of its existence survived? If so, then the labyrinths of West Antarctica might be the physical remnants of that forgotten world. But the greatest mystery lies deeper still. Within the largest chamber of the labyrinth, a dome nearly 5 kilometers wide, radar revealed something extraordinary. A massive central object, spherical, hollow, perfectly symmetrical. It rests at the chamber's core like a heart within a chest, aligned with the Earth's magnetic field in a way that suggests more than coincidence. Some believe it to be a natural void. Others think it may be a resonance chamber designed to amplify sound or energy. A few speculate it could be a vessel of unknown origin, frozen in place as the ice claimed the world above. Whatever it is, its presence defies explanation. The object appears to generate a faint electromagnetic signature, subtle but persistent, as if still functioning after tens of thousands of years. Instruments detect fluctuations, pulses, a pattern that repeats every 12 hours, precisely synchronized with Antarctica's tidal stresses. Is this coincidence? Or is this the heartbeat of the labyrinth? And if this structure, this sphere, was meant to endure, what purpose did it serve? Was it a generator, a sanctuary, a repository of knowledge meant to outlast catastrophe? Could it even be a device created to signal survivors long after the world above had been lost? These questions echo through the ice like distant voices. They whisper through the chambers, they resonate in the ancient stone, and they pull us deeper into the forgotten shadows of a world that predates our memory. Because the labyrinth is not merely a ruin, it is a message carved into the earth at the edge of time, a message buried beneath the southern sky, waiting for the moment when humanity becomes ready or desperate enough to hear it. And as we stand in the imagined darkness of those subterranean halls, feeling the cold weight of the ice pressing from above, we realize that this labyrinth, this ancient city, this impossible structure, is not the final secret. It is only the threshold. And what lies beyond that threshold is older still, a truth hidden so deeply within the ice that it has survived not just millennia, but ages. The next discovery will bring us face to face with a civilization that may have watched the world rise and fall long before our own story began. And it begins beneath an ocean of ancient ice, where something impossible awaits. Because as we cross from the labyrinth chambers of West Antarctica into the deeper, older shadows of the continent, we encounter a discovery that contradicts everything we believe about Earth's most remote region. It is here, beneath kilometers of frozen silence, that scientists have detected what can only be described as an underground ocean, a massive body of water so vast, so interconnected, that calling it a lake would be an insult to its scale. This hidden sea is older than the ice that blankets it, older than the civilizations that rose and fell in the warmer continents of the north. And within its vast, dark expanse, something, perhaps many things, may still be alive. But before we understand the implications of this ocean, we must understand what it is not. It is not Lake Vostok, nor any of the dozens of subglacial lakes mapped by modern surveys. This is something far greater. A continuous, serpentine network of deep water spreading beneath the continent like the veins of a sleeping giant. A hidden ocean sealed under pressures unimaginable, warmed by geothermal currents, pulsing with faint but detectable movement. Researchers expected to find isolated pockets of water. Instead, they found a system, a vast, interconnected hydrological realm, perhaps the largest sealed aquatic environment on the planet. And its age tells a story that cannot be ignored. Ice above the ocean ranges from 400,000 to over 1 million years old, depending on depth and location. This means the water beneath has remained untouched by the atmosphere for longer than Homo sapiens have existed. No sunlight has reached it, no wind, no sky, no life from the surface. Yet measurements taken from the edges of this ocean, where drilling has barely grazed the upper layers, reveal signs of organic compounds, microbial footprints, chemical imbalances that suggest metabolism. Life in total darkness, life in isolation, life in a world preserved since long before the last interglacial. But perhaps the most disturbing finding is not the existence of life, but the patterns within the water itself. There are currents, slow, rhythmic, predictable. These currents follow pathways that do not align with random geological channels. Instead, they seem guided, directed through tunnel-like formations carved into the bedrock. Some channels are angular, some form perfect arcs, and some appear to travel in straight lines for astonishing distances, as if they were designed to move something, or supply something, or connect something. These water routes hint at purpose, which leads to a question that grows more chilling with every new scan. What if this ocean is not merely natural? What if it was engineered, shaped, or modified by beings who lived during the continent's last warm age? This possibility gains weight when we examine its geography. The hidden ocean runs beneath 3 regions with previously detected anomalies: the Gamburtsev Mountains, Princess Elizabeth Land, and the massive West Antarctic Labyrinth. It links them like a circulatory system, as if these distant structures were once connected by waterways or energy conduits beneath the ground. More unsettling still, the deepest parts of this ocean form a perfect triangle, a geometric alignment that should not exist in nature. 3 major nodes, each under a region already known for patterns of impossible architecture. 3 points arranged as if marking something vast beneath the ice, something buried even deeper. But the ocean does more than connect and conceal. It remembers. Water carries memory in its layers, a history of temperature shifts, mineral deposits, biological presence, and deep within the densest layers, readings show traces of something metallic, not scattered deposits, not random minerals, but structured patterns, bands of metal aligned as if forming grids, metallic concentrations that mirror the shape of the anomalies above them. Could these be the collapsed ruins of an ancient superstructure? Could this ocean be hiding the remnants of machines, conduits, or chambers swallowed by rising waters long before the ice sealed them away? If so, then Antarctica's warm past was not merely fertile, it was advanced, far advanced. The myths of a southern civilization, a culture of star readers, architects, and navigators, begin to feel less like fantasy and more like echoes of a truth we have forgotten. In nearly every ancient cosmology, there exists a mention of a world beneath the sea, a sacred place submerged by disaster. Atlantis, Kumari Kandam, High Brazil, Cantref Gwailod, the flood narratives of Mesopotamia, the deluge in the Torah, the Manu story in India, all speak of a civilization lost to rising waters. But what if the flood did not happen in the warm, populated northern world? What if the original flood happened here, in Antarctica, when the climate shifted, the ice surged, and the once green continent drowned in snow? And what if survivors carried this memory north, telling the story until it became legend? As the ice thickened over thousands of years, this underground ocean became a tomb, but not a silent one. Because deep within the water, beneath curls of geothermal heat rising from fault lines, instruments have detected something extraordinary: acoustic signatures, not random noise, not the groaning of ancient ice, but pulses, regular pulses, a pattern that repeats every 18 minutes. A sequence too precise to be geological. Some believe it to be nothing more than resonance, vibrations amplified by the strange geometry of the tunnels. Others suspect a natural but unknown biological phenomenon. Yet a small number of researchers, those willing to walk the line between science and the forbidden, offer another possibility: a signal, a relic of something artificial, something ancient, something still echoing through the water after tens of thousands of years. These acoustic patterns grow stronger near the deepest triangular node, and here, the radar becomes almost unreadable, distorted by dense metallic anomalies that create electromagnetic interference. It is as if the ocean is trying to hide something or protect it. As we imagine the dark waters shifting under the weight of a continent, we feel something profound. This ocean is not empty. It is not silent. It is not dead. It is a threshold, a border between the world we know and a world lost beneath ice and memory. And this border is alive with echoes, patterns, signals, and structures waiting in the cold quiet. But beyond this ocean, deeper, darker, older, lies something that challenges not only human history, but the history of life on Earth itself. Because Antarctica holds not just ruins, it holds origins. And the next step into this frozen abyss will lead us directly into the oldest riddle of all. Because beneath the underground ocean, beneath the triangular nodes and the metallic echoes vibrating like ancient breaths, lies a realm so old that its existence threatens to rewrite not just human history, but the story of life itself. The southern continent, long believed to be nothing more than a dead wilderness, begins to reveal a truth so staggering that even the ice seems reluctant to give it away. A truth that suggests Antarctica may have been the cradle of a primordial age, an epoch before myth, before writing, before Homo sapiens carved symbols into stone. Long ago, before the ice, before the final collapse of the interglacial warmth, Antarctica may have been the birthplace of something far more ancient than civilization. It begins with a series of seismic anomalies detected at depths deeper than the underground ocean. Too deep for human construction, too engineered for natural geology. These anomalies take the form of perfectly circular chambers buried in the bedrock, chambers that appear older than the continent's last major tectonic uplift. They are positioned in a pattern reminiscent of celestial alignment, matching the 3 stars of Orion's belt, not as they appear today, but as they appeared approximately 125,000 years ago. This alignment alone is enough to spark debate. But what lies inside these chambers is what truly unsettles those who dare to study them. At the heart of the deepest chamber, seismic imaging reveals something that should not exist. A monolithic structure over a kilometer long, shaped like a flattened spindle, positioned vertically as if rising from the Earth's mantle itself. Its acoustics are unnatural, its density irregular, its composition is unlike any known rock on the planet. When researchers modeled its internal structure, they found hollow sections, geometric partitions, and lattice-like formations consistent with engineered materials. A monolith buried deeper than any ruin should be. A monolith older than any city could ever be. But how old? Dating the surrounding strata, scientists determined that the structure predates the last major warming of Antarctica, predates the formation of the continent's modern ice by tens of thousands of years, predates the earliest known Homo sapiens fossils in Africa, predates the rise of Neanderthals, predates even the ancestors of modern humans. If this structure is artificial, if it was built, then it was built before humanity existed. And that forces us to ask a question most researchers cannot even entertain. Who built it? Or perhaps the more appropriate question is, what built it? Some propose an unknown hominid species, advanced far beyond what archaeology currently accepts. Others suggest an earlier cycle of humanity, a civilization that rose and fell long before our own, erased by time, remembered only in myth. But there is another possibility, whispered by those who study the geological anomalies of the southern continent with unease, a possibility that Earth itself may have hosted a pre-human intelligence during an age long forgotten. In the deepest corners of ancient mythology, before the stories were polished into the versions we know today, there are fragments of a primordial world, a world ruled by beings who shaped land, water, and sky, not gods in the modern sense, but architects, teachers, wanderers of the early Earth who ignited the first sparks of knowledge in the species that came after. The Sumerians called them the Anuna. The Egyptians named them the Shemsu-Hor, the followers of Horus. The Hopi speak of the ant people who lived underground before the last cataclysm. The Polynesians recall the Tangata Manu, the skywalkers who brought wisdom from a distant land. The Greeks described the Hyperboreans, shining beings who dwelled in the far south. Across cultures that never met, the same motif appears, an ancient race, long gone, whose existence preceded humanity. Could these myths be memories of something real? Something that once existed in the world before memory? Could the monolith beneath Antarctica be a relic of this primordial age? The seismic readings show more than structure. They show vibration, a frequency pulsing faintly through the bedrock, a resonance that matches no natural geological source. The frequency shifts subtly with the tides, with the Earth's rotation, even with storms overhead, as if the monolith is responding, adjusting, or simply enduring. Some believe it to be nothing more than ancient stress patterns in the stone. Others suspect a form of technology so old and so foreign that our instruments cannot interpret it. And yet, a small number of researchers, those willing to follow the truth wherever it leads, offer a more extraordinary theory. The monolith may be a repository, a vault, a memory stone left behind by a civilization that existed before the last planetary reset. If this is true, then Antarctica is not simply a continent. It is a library, a repository for knowledge older than humanity, a vault locked beneath kilometers of ice, waiting for a time when the world is ready to understand it. But what kind of disaster could erase such a civilization? What kind of event could freeze a continent, drown its cities, bury its oceans, and collapse its structures beneath 1,000,000 years of snow? The answer lies in the Earth's axial cycles. Approximately every 100,000 years, the planet shifts through extreme climatic oscillations, warm interglacial periods followed by crushing ice ages. These shifts, triggered by subtle changes in Earth's orbit and tilt, can transform climates in a matter of centuries. A continent once covered in forests can become a desert of ice. Sea levels can rise or fall by more than 100 meters. Civilization, even advanced civilization, cannot survive such upheavals unless it is prepared for them. Perhaps the beings who built the monolith saw the freeze coming. Perhaps they understood the cycles. Perhaps they left behind messages carved in stone, sealed in chambers, embedded in the Earth's deep crust. Messages meant for the species that would come after, and perhaps we are only now beginning to hear them. Because alongside the seismic anomalies, researchers discovered something even more shocking. Deep core samples from the surrounding rock contain isotopes inconsistent with Earth's natural composition, elements in ratios that do not exist elsewhere in the crust. Signatures of intense thermal manipulation, the kind associated with high-energy construction or fusion-like processes. If these readings are accurate, then the monolith was not carved. It was forged. Forged in a world long gone. Forged by hands or tools unknown. Forged for a purpose that still hums faintly beneath the ice. As we stare into the imagined darkness of that buried chamber, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Antarctica has not always been what it is today. It has lived many lives. It has seen many suns. It has witnessed cataclysms that shattered the world and washed away entire eras. And in its deepest places, it may hold the memories of those eras, memories waiting for the ice to melt, for humanity to listen, for the world to awaken once more. But the monolith is only the beginning. What lies above it, the ruins, the ocean, the labyrinth, the mountains, all point to a civilization erased by a moment of cosmic violence. And what lies below it may explain why Antarctica became the vault of the forgotten world. Because beneath the monolith is another chamber, older, deeper, darker, a chamber that may hold the key to the last days of the world before the ice. And what happened there will change everything we think we know about our own origins. Because beneath the monolith, deeper than the ancient bedrock and older than any known geological layer, exists a chamber that defies not only history, but the very sequence of Earth's memory. This chamber, detected only through the faintest seismic echoes and gravitational anomalies, seems to hover on the edge of the impossible, a pocket carved into the crust before the crust itself had finished forming. To modern instruments, it is a shadow, a void, a whisper of architecture in a place where no structure should ever exist. And yet, it is there, waiting beneath the monolith, like the final chapter of a forgotten book. This chamber, known to a handful of researchers as the Last Dawn Cavern, is shaped with a precision that no natural formation can imitate. Its geometry is crystalline. Angles repeat in fractal patterns. The chamber's proportions match no known architectural style. Not Egyptian, not Sumerian, not megalithic, not even the geometric templates used in Neolithic stone circles. Instead, it follows a mathematical logic more akin to cosmic physics than terrestrial construction. Spirals, harmonic ratios, geometries that mirror orbital dynamics. It is as if the chamber was not designed to house something physical, but something conceptual, knowledge, energy, memory, or a message encoded in the dimension of space itself. But what lies at its center is even more perplexing. Seismic reflections indicate a structure shaped like a pillar, tall, narrow, composed of material far denser than any stone found in Antarctica. The pillar's resonance signature is unique. It emits a frequency that changes subtly with the rotation of the Earth, as if responding to the planet's movement through space. Its vibrations intensify during periods of increased solar activity. Its pulse grows quieter during geomagnetic storms. And on rare occasions, when Earth passes through certain cosmic alignments, the pillar sings. Not a sound we can hear, but a tremor detectable through instruments. A pattern, a sequence, a rhythm that repeats in intervals too precise to be random. No natural geological feature behaves this way. This pillar, whatever it is, remembers something. It reacts to the cosmos as though it were once aligned with the stars, once exposed to the sky, once part of a world that watched the heavens with intent. It behaves like a relic of an age when Antarctica stood not at the end of the Earth, but at its beginning, and perhaps it did. The deeper we explore the chamber's resonances, the more it becomes clear that Antarctica may once have been positioned differently on the globe, not locked under eternal polar night, but facing the sun with a gentle, temperate glow, a place where the celestial patterns reflected above mirrored the structures carved below. A place that served as an observatory of the early Earth, built not by primitive hands but by a culture that understood cosmic cycles in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. Perhaps this chamber was a calendar. Perhaps it was an energy device. Perhaps it was a memory vault encoded not in words, but in harmonics. Or perhaps it was something far more profound, a warning left by a civilization that foresaw its own end. As this possibility grows, so does another question. What happened to them? To answer this, we must follow the isotopic anomalies discovered near the chamber's outer walls. These anomalies contain traces of an event so intense that its signature can still be read after more than 100,000 years. A sudden thermal spike, a burst of energy, a moment of extreme heating followed by immediate freezing. This combination is unnatural. It suggests something catastrophic, a rapid shift so violent that entire ecosystems were erased in days. This aligns with the global myths of the last cataclysm, the flood, the freeze, the collapse of the first world. Legends tell of it with mournful clarity, a great turning of the heavens, a tilt of the earth, a storm of ice that swallowed entire lands. The Hopi spoke of worlds destroyed by cold. The Eddas speak of Fimbulwinter. The Andean peoples describe a southern kingdom consumed by frost. And in the earliest Vedic hymns, there are mentions of a white death that swept across the ocean to devour a shining land. If these myths hold truth, Antarctica may have been that land. But why would such an advanced civilization fall? The clues point to a cosmic event, perhaps a shift in Earth's axial tilt, perhaps an interstellar object, perhaps a solar phenomenon that destabilized global temperatures. Whatever the cause, the effect would have been swift. Sea levels would rise, weather patterns would destabilize, temperate forests would wither and die, ice would surge across the land with relentless force. If the people of Antarctica foresaw this, they would have fled north. They may have carried with them fragments of knowledge, fragments that later seeded the world's earliest civilizations. The sudden rise of agriculture, the surprising sophistication of early astronomy, the appearance of shared mythological motifs across cultures separated by oceans. These may not be coincidences, they may be memories. But even if survivors escaped, the heart of their civilization, their greatest structures, their central archives, would have been lost to the cold, buried beneath the first snowfalls that heralded a new ice age, encased by centuries of storms, compressed under kilometers of ice until the continent became a vault, preserving the world before the world we know. Which brings us back to the Last Dawn cavern. The chamber's design suggests it was built as a final refuge, not for people, but for memory. A place meant to endure even if its creators did not. A place meant to survive the freeze, survive the flood, survive cycles of destruction so ancient that they outlast the species who first witnessed them. And yet the chamber is not dormant. Its pillar still vibrates. Its harmonics still shift with the heavens. Its presence still whispers through the ice like a warning meant for anyone who dares to listen. And what it suggests is unsettling. The cycle that ended the last civilization may not have been unique. It may be recurring. The Earth has patterns, long rhythms, climatic pulses that sweep across millennia like tides. And if the Last Dawn cavern holds a warning encoded in harmonic geometry, then perhaps that warning was meant for us. Because the ice is melting again, slowly, relentlessly, revealing fragments of what came before. And with every year, Antarctica awakens just a little more. But as the ice retreats, something else begins to stir, something deeper, older, and infinitely more mysterious. The next revelation will take us to the edge of the ancient world's greatest secret, a secret waiting in silence for 100,000 years. And as the ice withdraws, exposing scars of a forgotten world, it becomes clear that Antarctica is not simply thawing, it is awakening. The continent is shifting, breathing, whispering through fractures in the ice, as if the ancient structures buried beneath are beginning to stir from a long, glacial sleep. This is not metaphor. This is not imagination. This is the Earth remembering its past. We now stand on the threshold of understanding something staggering. Antarctica may be more than a vault of forgotten civilizations. It may be an archive, a deliberate repository built to survive the violent cycles of the planet. A southern acropolis of memory, designed with intent, encoded with knowledge, sealed beneath a continent-sized tomb of ice. And what is emerging now, as the ice melts at accelerating rates, is nothing short of astonishing. Across the continent, from the Ross Ice Shelf to the margins of the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers are detecting geometric patterns in the bedrock that mirror one another with impossible consistency. Long, straight lines, perfect circles, triangular complexes aligned with ancient celestial north rather than the Earth's present orientation. These patterns repeat as if they form pieces of a single structure, a structure so large it spans hundreds of kilometers, hidden beneath ice sheets thick enough to swallow entire mountain ranges. This colossal network is what some researchers call the Southern Archive. At first, it was dismissed as glacial stress patterns, pressure ridges, fractures, melt layers. But as seasonal melt accelerated and satellites returned clearer imagery, the repeating geometry became undeniable. Nature does not repeat precision like this. Nature does not align formations with extinct celestial poles. Nature does not carve identical angles across distances larger than countries. Someone built this. But the question is not only who, it is why. Clues appear when we analyze the orientation of the structures. They are not aligned with today's stars. They are aligned with the sky as it existed between 98,000 and 106,000 years ago, the last time Antarctica experienced a sustained period of warmth. During that era, large portions of the continent were forested. Lakes shimmered in valleys, rivers ran free, and the coastline resembled the map drawn not by modern explorers, but by ancient cartographers like Oronteus Finaeus. It is as if the builders of the Southern Archive designed their structures in harmony with the heavens of their age, just as the Egyptians oriented the pyramids to Orion's belt, just as the megalithic builders of Göbekli Tepe aligned their pillars to precession cycles, just as the Maya built temples that tracked the movement of Venus. Humanity's earliest civilizations did not emerge in a vacuum. They appeared suddenly, fully formed, with sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, geometry, and engineering, knowledge that seemed to arrive all at once, without a clear evolutionary path. What if that knowledge was inherited? What if it survived the destruction of an older world, a world preserved beneath the Antarctic ice? The Southern Archive may hold the answer. The patterns etched into the bedrock beneath the ice reveal something extraordinary. A massive circular structure nearly 30 kilometers across, linked to angular corridors that extend in cardinal directions. The circle is divided into 12 equal segments, a zodiacal wheel of monumental scale. Each segment points toward a constellation as it appeared during the last interglacial. The entire complex seems to function as a celestial clock, tracking not days or seasons, but the great cycles of precession, cycles that span tens of thousands of years. Only advanced civilizations track time on this scale. Only civilizations with deep astronomical awareness encode cycles they know will outlive them. And then there is the most astonishing discovery. At the center of the Southern Archive lies a void, a perfectly circular cavity almost 2 kilometers wide, mapped by radar but unreachable by drilling. The ice above this void is unstable, prone to sudden collapses, yet scans reveal something inside, a structure shaped like an immense ring, buried under ice thicker than history itself. The ring appears metallic, hollow, engineered. Some believe it may have served as a resonance device, a mechanism that vibrated with the Earth's natural frequencies, functioning like a planetary tuner or stabilizer. Others whisper that it might be something even more enigmatic, a gateway, a transmitter, a mirror designed to interact with cosmic forces long forgotten by our species. But whatever its purpose, the ring is ancient, older than the chamber of the last dawn, older than the monolith, older, perhaps, than the civilization that built the labyrinths, cities, and subterranean vaults. This ring may be the oldest artifact on Earth. The implications are staggering. If this structure predates the last interglacial, then it may belong to a cycle even older, a cycle from before the last planetary reset. This suggests that Antarctica may have been inhabited not only during the warm period 100,000 years ago, but during an even earlier epoch, perhaps multiple epochs, when climates shifted, poles wandered, and continents moved through phases of warmth and ice over unimaginable timescales. What if civilization did not begin 6,000 years ago? What if it did not begin 12,000 years ago? What if civilization is cyclical, rising and falling with the rhythms of the planet, leaving behind fragments that survive only in myths and ruins? The Southern Archive suggests exactly that. As the ice melts, the archive awakens. Acoustic signals grow stronger near the ring structure. Seismic pulses increase in rhythm. The subterranean ocean stirs with unfamiliar currents. And sometimes, during rare alignments of sun, earth, and moon, instruments detect faint electromagnetic whispers emanating from the depths, almost like a coded transmission struggling to rise through 100,000 years of frozen silence. Some scientists say these signals are interference. Some say they are geological noise. But others believe we are hearing the last heartbeat of the ancient world. And as the ice recedes further, revealing fragments of a civilization lost to time, we move closer to the truth that has waited for us beneath the southern stars. A truth older than humanity, older than memory, older than the world we know. Yet even this is not the end, because the next revelation is the one that terrifies researchers the most. A discovery so profound and so unsettling that it challenges not only human history, but the future of the planet itself. For Antarctica does not merely hold the memory of what happened. It may hold the warning of what is coming next. And as we descend deeper into this unfolding mystery, past the labyrinths, the monolith, the last dawn cavern, and the vast southern archive, a chilling realization emerges. The ancient builders of this frozen continent may have left behind not only knowledge, but a message meant to endure across the rise and fall of civilizations. A message encoded in stone, ice, vibration, and celestial alignment. A message preserved for the moment when humanity once again stands at the edge of a planetary turning. That moment is now. Across the last decades, Antarctica's ice has thinned at rates unseen in recorded history. Caverns open, subglacial lakes shift, long-buried formations come into focus under new scanning technologies, and each new discovery seems to point toward a single, unsettling truth. The structures of the Southern Archive were designed to be revealed, not suddenly, not all at once, but gradually, as if thawing was itself a mechanism, an unlocking sequence built into the fabric of the continent, a process that begins only when the Earth reaches a specific threshold. And now, that threshold has arrived. The ancient ring at the center of the archive, the vast metallic circle buried beneath ice thick enough to muffle entire mountain ranges, has begun to behave strangely. Instruments detect subtle changes in temperature around its perimeter. Microscopic vibrations ripple through the ice above it, growing in intensity during certain lunar cycles. Electromagnetic readings spike without warning, increasing in frequency year after year. And during one remarkable moment, captured by a research drone only because of sheer coincidence, the ice above the ring shifted as if resonating with something deep beneath it, something awakening. These phenomena have no geological explanation, none that fit within the quiet, predictable story we once assumed Antarctica told. But they align perfectly with the patterns found throughout the ancient structures. Harmonic ratios, precessional cycles, celestial alignments. The builders encoded time into architecture, anticipating the moment when climate would shift and the ice would retreat. This was not accident. This was intention, which brings us to the message itself. Hidden in the Southern Archive's geometric layout, In the 12 segments of the massive wheel, in the alignments of the corridors, in the placement of the monolith and the last dawn cavern, is a pattern that repeats across Earth's ancient sites. A pattern found in the pyramids of Giza, the stone circles of Nabta Playa, the megaliths of Göbekli Tepe, and the temples of the Andes. A pattern based on Earth's axial precession, the 25,120-year cycle through which the planet slowly wobbles, altering its seasons, climates, and magnetic orientation. Ancient cultures called this cycle the Great Year. The builders of Antarctica encoded it into the continent itself, and when researchers mapped the Southern Archive against precessional epochs, they discovered something astonishing. The positions of its corridors align not with the past, but with the future. The archive marks the moment of the next turning, the next time Earth enters a phase of instability similar to the one that ended the last Antarctic civilization. That moment, according to the archive's pattern, is now. The cycle is repeating. Earth's magnetic field is weakening. The poles are shifting. Global temperatures are rising and falling in abrupt, erratic patterns. Oceans heat from below. Storms behave as if caught between two climatic worlds. And beneath Antarctica, the ancient structures stir. It is as though the continent is waking up at the same pace the planet destabilizes, as if both events were expected, predicted, and recorded by a civilization that survived such a turning once before, and did not survive it the second time. But the warning is not simply that another upheaval is coming. It is what the builders did to prepare for it. At the edges of the Southern Archive's vast wheel lie a series of smaller nodes, circular depressions in the bedrock that echo the layout of ceremonial sites found worldwide. Within these depressions, radar detects irregularities that resemble stone tablets or steles arranged in spirals. Their orientation suggests an encoded sequence, likely astronomical, possibly historical. If these objects are indeed inscriptions left behind by ancient hands, they may contain the story of the last great turning, the moment when Antarctica froze, cities fell, and survivors fled north to seed younger civilizations. These steles may hold the memory of the world before the world we know, but reaching them is impossible for now. The ice remains too thick, the terrain too unstable, the structures too deep. Antarctica guards its final secrets with the same impenetrable silence it has maintained for 100,000 years, and yet some secrets are already pushing their way out. Cracks appear where none existed before. Meltwater rushes through channels older than humanity. Acoustic signatures echo louder every year. The ring beneath the archive trembles with a rhythm that mirrors the deep earth. Something is shifting beneath the ice, awakening, vibrating, remembering. The ancient builders must have known this would happen. They must have watched the last cycle unfold. They must have understood that one day the ice would return, and then one day the ice would vanish again. The Southern Archive is not a tomb. It is a prophecy, a memory engineered to survive extinction, a guide encoded in architecture, a warning etched into the bones of a continent, a reminder that civilizations rise and fall with the turning of the great year, swallowed by ice and fire, reborn with sunlight and thaw. Antarctica remembers. And now, as the world changes once more, it calls to us from beneath the ice, urging us to look deeper, to understand its message, to prepare for what comes next. Because the next cycle is not a distant threat, it is already unfolding. And as Antarctica awakens, we must ask ourselves, are we the next civilization destined to rise, or the next to disappear beneath the ice? The answer lies in the next discovery, a revelation so profound that it forces us to confront not only the past and the future, but the fate of humanity itself. Because as Antarctica awakens beneath the rising sun of a warming world, something extraordinary is emerging from its frozen depths. Something that suggests the Southern Archive was only a fragment of a much greater system, a planetary network constructed by an ancient intelligence that understood the rhythms of Earth in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. And as the next cycle unfolds, the echoes of this forgotten system grow louder, reverberating through the ice like a heartbeat returning after ages of silence. The beginning of this revelation came unexpectedly, a seismic event in a region long believed to be stable, a tremor so deep that it bypassed fault lines altogether, originating not in the crust, but beneath it, from the same hidden regions where the last dawn cavern and the monolith reside. Instruments across Antarctica recorded a pulse, a low-frequency wave that traveled through the continent like a slow-moving bell toll. This pulse repeated exactly 12 days later, then again, 12 days after that. Always the same interval, always the same pattern. Nature does not beat with such mathematical precision. When researchers triangulated the pulse's source, they discovered something astonishing. The center of the seismic resonance was not the monolith itself, but a point beneath it, deeper, older, untouched by any human instrument. A place we have never seen, but whose existence cannot be denied. A cavern beneath the cavern, a chamber beneath the chamber, a structure at the very roots of Antarctica, older than the ice, older than the continent, older perhaps than the Earth's current configuration. This hidden place has been named the foundation chamber, not because we know what it is, but because everything above it seems to rest on its design. The monolith aligns with it. The Last Dawn cavern echoes its geometry. The Southern Archive mirrors its proportions. Even the triangular nodes of the underground ocean seem to converge upon it like rivers feeding a vast, unseen sea. Whatever the foundation chamber is, it appears to be the central node of the entire Antarctic system, the heart of the forgotten world. Yet what lies within it remains a mystery. Radar cannot penetrate its depth. Seismic imaging breaks apart as if the chamber absorbs the waves. Magnetic readings collapse into static. It is as if the structure beneath the monolith refuses to be seen, as if it was engineered specifically to resist the tools of future civilizations. And that raises a stunning possibility. The ancient builders did not intend the foundation chamber to be discovered, not until the correct moment, not until the cycle repeated, not until the world thawed enough to expose the edges of their work, not until humanity reached a point where it could interpret the signs they left behind. This thought grows even more unsettling when we examine the chamber's resonant pulses more closely. Each pulse contains harmonics, layers of frequencies stacked like chords, and when these frequencies are translated into visual form, they create geometric patterns identical to the shapes found in the Southern Archive: the 12-fold wheel, the spirals, the triangles, the great circle beneath the ice. It is as if the foundation chamber is transmitting instructions, or warnings, or memories encoded in frequency instead of language. But messages to whom? To us, or to someone, or something yet to come. To answer this, we must look not beneath the ice, but at the stars. Because when researchers mapped the pulse intervals against celestial data, they made a discovery too precise to be coincidence. Each seismic pulse aligns with a shift in the Earth's precessional orientation, a subtle wobble in the planet's axis. 12 days between pulses, 12 precessional markers within a single cycle, 12 segments in the Antarctic wheel, 12 stargates from ancient myth. This number, repeated across cultures and continents, appears to be a signature, a cosmic clock counting down to the next turning. And Antarctica is ringing the hour. But the implications go deeper still, because when the pulse data is compared to archaeological timelines, an eerie pattern emerges. Each time Earth entered a phase of rapid climate change, the younger Dryas, the great meltwater pulse, the sudden rise of early civilizations, we see faint echoes of the same frequency, the same 12-fold resonance, the same whisper of the southern continent stirring beneath the ice. Could these pulses have influenced human history? Could they have triggered migrations, awakened memories buried in genetic code? sparked sudden leaps in knowledge, guided survivors from one cycle to the next? It is a possibility that unsettles even the most daring researchers, because it suggests that Antarctica has been communicating with humanity across entire ages, whispering through the ground, through water, through magnetic shifts, through myth and memory. And now, as the ice melts, the pulses grow stronger. The last time the pulses peaked, the world entered a catastrophic era. Ice surged across continents, oceans drowned coastlines, civilizations collapsed, species vanished. The ancient builders of Antarctica lived through that turning. They saw the signs, they built archives, they built vaults, they built monoliths, celestial wheels, and resonance chambers to warn those who would come after. But they did not survive the catastrophe, not fully. Their cities fell beneath snow. Their oceans froze. Their monuments were buried in silence. Their knowledge scattered into myths carried by refugees who fled into warmer lands. And now the pattern repeats. But there is one difference, one that sets our era apart from any before. This time, the ice is melting faster. This time, the climate is shifting at unprecedented speed. This time, the pulses grow stronger not over centuries but years. This time, the ancient mechanisms beneath Antarctica are awakening at a pace that defies every known cycle. Something is accelerating the turning. Something is altering the rhythm. And the foundation chamber may hold the answer. An answer frozen beneath a continent, sealed by a civilization that knew the future because it had lived the past. But we cannot reach it. Not yet. The ice is still too thick, the technology too limited, the world too unprepared. And so the pulses continue, building toward a moment we do not yet understand. Because the message written in ice is not complete. Something else is emerging from the southern continent, something older, deeper, and even more unsettling. A discovery that will force us to reconsider not only who built the Antarctic structures, but whether they ever truly left. And what awaits us in the next block will challenge the very identity of humanity and the origins we thought we understood. Because as the pulses strengthen, as the ice thins, and as Antarctica reveals fragments of a world older than memory, a new pattern emerges, one so vast, so unexpected, that it forces us to reconsider whether the ancient builders of the southern continent vanished in the catastrophe, or whether they left behind something far more enduring than stone, metal, or myth. This revelation begins not under the ice, but beyond it, in the sky. For years, astronomers studying Earth's southern hemisphere detected faint anomalies in cosmic radiation patterns. These distortions, barely perceptible, appeared as ripples in the background microwave radiation, echoes of ancient cosmic events. At first, they were dismissed as noise, instrumental interference, atmospheric scattering, but as the readings accumulated across multiple observatories, a strange truth emerged. The distortions correlated directly with seismic pulses emanating from the foundation chamber. When the chamber pulsed, the sky trembled. When the chamber fell silent, the distortions faded. This suggests something extraordinary, something we were never prepared to consider. The Antarctic mechanism is interacting not only with the planet, but with space itself, as if the ancient builders engineered a system to synchronize Earth with cosmic rhythms. But why? To preserve knowledge? To stabilize the planet during catastrophic shifts? To communicate with distant observers? Or perhaps to signal something waiting beyond the stars? The more researchers studied these cosmic distortions, the more unsettling the conclusions became. The patterns were not random. They repeated in cycles. They aligned with star positions known to be important in ancient mythologies: Orion, Sirius, the Pleiades. These were the same constellations revered by early civilizations across the world, the same constellations encoded into pyramids, temples, and megaliths thousands of miles apart. What if this cosmic reverence did not originate with humanity? What if it was inherited from the survivors of the last Antarctic age? This question becomes even more haunting when we examine the genetic record. Deep genome studies across global populations reveal fragments of ancient DNA, markers that do not fit comfortably into the accepted timeline of human evolution. These markers appear suddenly in early Homo sapiens, as if introduced by a rapid infusion of genetic diversity. They do not match Neanderthals, Denisovans, or any known hominid. They seem older, stranger, a remnant of something that lived through the last interglacial period and disappeared during the Great Freeze. Could the survivors of the Antarctic civilization have carried this DNA north? Could they have mingled with early human groups, leaving behind fragments of a lineage older than our species? This possibility was once dismissed as fringe speculation, but then came the discovery. A drill team working near Dome C, attempting to extract deep ice cores for climate research, recovered something they were not searching for. Embedded within ice, older than human civilization, was a fragment, a shard the size of a fingernail, composed of a material resembling stone, but with properties unlike any geological substance on Earth. It was smooth, metallic in sheen, and etched with microscopic grooves arranged in fractal patterns. This was not a rock. This was not a mineral. This was a fragment of the same material found on the monolith. And when analyzed, it displayed something impossible: nanostructures resembling encoded data. The shard was a memory device, a relic of the Antarctic builders, lost for 100,000 years, preserved perfectly in the ice. What was inscribed on it? Patterns, maps, harmonic sequences, mathematical constructs that mirrored the architecture of the Southern Archive. But there was something else, something that left scientists speechless. The shard contained what appeared to be an abstract representation of a genome not identical to human DNA, but similar enough to suggest shared ancestry. This was the moment everything changed, the moment the world realized that the builders of Antarctica were not gods, not extraterrestrials, not mythic beings of legend, but a branch of intelligence that evolved on Earth before the last great turning. A species older than Homo sapiens, a species that flourished during the Warm Age, a species that built cities beneath southern skies and studied the stars with technologies now buried under miles of ice. And as the climate shifted, as the poles wandered, as the world fell into catastrophic freeze, this species died, except for those who fled north, carrying fragments of their knowledge, fragments of their bloodline, fragments of a lost world. Their echoes lived on in early humans. Their myths became our myths. Their symbols became our sacred geometry. Their memory became our origin stories, distorted, fragmented, reinterpreted as gods, angels, culture bringers, sky ancestors. But they were none of these things. They were the first architects of Earth, and their greatest legacy lies buried in Antarctica, locked beneath cycles of ice and sun, a legacy now returning as the planet warms again. But this revelation leads to an even more profound question. If the ancient builders foresaw their own destruction, if they encoded warnings in the ice, if they created vaults, archives, monoliths, and harmonic machines to speak across ages, then what were they trying to warn us about? The pulses, the melting, the awakening of the Southern Archive, the sudden resonance with the sky. These are not random events. They are part of a pattern, a cycle, a countdown. And as humanity accelerates toward the next great turning, the Antarctic mechanisms, dormant for 100 millennia, appear to be activating once more. But what they are activating for is a question that chills every researcher who studies them, because the builders may not have vanished, they may not have gone extinct, they may not have disappeared into myth, they may simply be waiting, and what they are waiting for is what comes next. The next block will take us into the final phase of the ancient cycle, the moment when the southern world rises once more from beneath the ice, and the architects return in the only way they can, not through bodies, not through bloodlines, but through the reactivation of the world they left behind, through the awakening of Antarctica itself. Because as the shard from Dome C was analyzed, as its fractal inscriptions were decoded, as its harmonic signatures were compared to the pulses from the foundation chamber, a picture began to emerge, a picture not of a dead civilization, but of a civilization that planned for its own rebirth, a civilization that engineered its knowledge to survive even when its people could not. A civilization that merged architecture, astronomy, geology, and biology into a single system, a living continent designed to endure catastrophe. Antarctica was not simply a homeland. It was a machine, a planetary mechanism built across tens of thousands of years, designed to sense, store, and respond to cycles of cosmic and climatic change. And that machine is turning on again. The first clear sign came from the Thwaites region, a place known for its rapidly melting ice, often called the Doomsday Glacier. For years, satellites had captured strange heat signatures rising from beneath its frozen surface, far too regular to be volcanic. But then something changed. The heat patterns shifted from chaotic to rhythmic, matching the harmonic sequence found on the shard. It was as if something beneath the glacier had been dormant, waiting, following instructions older than human civilization, instructions now awakening one by one. Not long after, a deep radar sweep revealed a circular depression beneath the ice, almost identical in shape to the ring at the center of the Southern Archive, a sister structure, a second node, a conduit of the ancient network. The two rings, separated by nearly 2,000 kilometers, pulsed in alternating rhythms, as if communicating through the Earth's crust, and with each pulse, the ice above them thinned. Meanwhile, the Dome C team continued decoding the shard, uncovering sequences that resembled stored information, not random geometry. The data contained references to cycles of heat, cold, solar activity, and magnetic reversal. But there was something else, diagrams that seemed to depict the Antarctic continent not as it is, but as it once was, green, vibrant, cradled by warm currents, and covered with geometric structures stretching for thousands of kilometers. But it was the final encoded pattern that stunned the researchers, a projection, a map of Antarctica's future, not its past. According to the shard, the ice will not simply melt chaotically, it will melt in patterns, revealing specific structures in a specific order, unlocking chambers one after another, activating nodes in a sequence that traces the Great Year cycle. In other words, the architects built Antarctica to wake up in stages, and stage one has already begun. This carefully engineered thaw is not about destruction, it is about revelation. The ancient builders anticipated the warm age returning and encoded the continent to slowly unveil its secrets when the time was right. But why now? The shard hints at an answer. Within its fractal patterns lies a diagram resembling the alignment of three astronomical bodies, the Sun, the Earth, and a distant star cluster believed to be the Pleiades. This alignment occurs at long intervals, marking key moments in the precessional cycle. Each time the alignment occurs, Earth undergoes rapid climatic shifts. The last alignment triggered the Great Freeze. The next alignment triggers the Great Thaw. We are entering that alignment now. But the architects were not simply astronomers. They were biologists, physicists, and mathematicians of extraordinary capacity. They understood that the collapse of their world was inevitable, and they prepared Antarctica as a self-preserving system. The foundation chamber beneath the monolith acts as a master node, sending pulses when certain cosmic conditions are met. The pulses activate specific geothermal conduits. The conduits melt ice above hidden structures. The structures release more encoded material. The entire network awakens in harmony with Earth's next evolutionary chapter. Humanity has mistaken this awakening for climate change alone, but climate change is only the surface effect. The deeper cause is the reactivation of a system that has been waiting for 100,000 years. And now, all across the continent, signs of this awakening multiply. Frozen rivers begin flowing again along impossible geometric paths. Subglacial lakes shift in synchronized oscillations. Metallic echoes ring through deep caverns when solar storms strike. Ancient ice melts from the top and the bottom simultaneously, as if heated by an internal engine. Antarctica is not collapsing. Antarctica is unveiling. But this unveiling brings a new mystery, one that terrifies even the most fearless researchers. During a recent seismic survey near the Princess Elizabeth anomaly, the region containing the buried city, an unexpected signal emerged. It was not geological. It was not electromagnetic. It was not biological. It was linguistic. A patterned sequence of tones, pulses, and intervals that matched the harmonic language inscribed on the shard. A message, faint, fragmented, but unmistakably intentional. When translated using the fractal keys in the shard, the message became clear. The cycle returns. The memory must awaken. The world must be prepared. But prepared for what? The shard does not say. The pulses from the foundation chamber do not say. The structures beneath the ice do not say. But the signs point towards something enormous, a convergence of cosmic, geological, and biological forces that the architects survived once before and failed to survive the second time. They built Antarctica to warn the next world, and we are the next world. The question now is not whether Antarctica is waking. It is whether we are ready to listen, because the next stage of awakening, the one encoded most deeply in the shard, is about to begin. And what it reveals will shake the foundations of human identity and expose a truth long buried beneath the southern stars. Because as the architect's message grows clearer, as Antarctica melts in the precise sequence encoded by a civilization older than our own species, the world begins to realize something terrifying and magnificent at the same time. Everything is converging. The climate, the cosmic cycles, the seismic pulses, the awakening of the Southern Archive, the emergence of encoded messages from beneath the ice. All of it is part of a single, colossal pattern, a pattern that humanity was never meant to ignore. This pattern is known now as the Great Convergence. It begins with the sky. During a rare celestial event, when the Earth tilted toward the southern hemisphere in alignment with the Sun and the distant Pleiadian cluster, something extraordinary happened. The seismic pulses from Antarctica synchronized perfectly with a burst of cosmic radiation arriving from deep space. The radiation pattern matched the harmonic sequences found on the shard. The pulses from the foundation chamber echoed the frequencies of the incoming waves. It was as if the continent was responding, answering, to a signal sent across the stars. If this were coincidence, it would be fascinating. But the probability of such synchronization is mathematically impossible. Something in Antarctica is listening. Something in Antarctica is responding. This realization forces a re-examination of the architects themselves. Perhaps they were not simply an ancient Earth-based civilization. Perhaps they were something more, something hybrid, something connected to cosmic rhythms in ways humanity has long forgotten. Their structures, their calculations, their harmonic architecture all point to a species that understood the movement of the heavens with a level of sophistication rivaling and surpassing our modern astrophysics. But the Great Convergence is not unfolding only in the sky. It is unfolding beneath our feet. Across the continent, seismic patterns begin forming geometric shapes, spirals, wheels, triangles, mapped by ground sensors as if the Earth's crust itself is speaking in the architect's language. These patterns appear in perfect alignment with the buried cities, the labyrinths, and the monolith, and they intensify each time the foundation chamber pulses. It is almost as if Antarctica is reorganizing itself, activating dormant systems long encased in ice, reawakening a network that once spanned the entire continent, preparing for a moment encoded before the last great freeze. Scientists studying these geometric tremors noticed an astonishing detail. The shapes match the oldest symbols found in human cultures. Symbols carved on the walls of Göbekli Tepe, symbols etched into the pyramids of Egypt, symbols hidden in the Inca sekes, the Hopi petroglyphs, the aboriginal Dreamtime constellations. These geometric markers were not invented independently. They were inherited. Whispers from the survivors of the last age, warnings passed from one world to the next. And now the source of those warnings, the Antarctic mechanism, is waking. But the true heart of the Great Convergence lies beneath the ocean. Not the ocean surrounding Antarctica, but the massive underground ocean flowing beneath its ice. This hidden sea, once thought to be stagnant and isolated, is now exhibiting signs of rapid movement. Currents shift in patterns identical to the harmonic cycles on the shard. Long channels of water suddenly heat from below, illuminated by geothermal pulses triggered in perfect synchronization with the foundation chamber. These currents travel between the triangular nodes, like blood returning to dormant organs. And then something miraculous occurs. As one node activates, a glow appears beneath the ice, a faint luminescence captured by sensors, caused not by sunlight, but by the bioelectric activity of microorganisms awakening in the subterranean water. Microorganisms that should not be alive. Microorganisms that are older than the ice itself. Microorganisms whose DNA carries structures not found in any known Earth lineage. The same patterns found on the shard. It becomes clear that the architects did not merely store knowledge in stone and metal. They stored it in life. They engineered organisms capable of surviving extinction-level events, preserving encoded genetic memory for future civilizations. Life as an archive, life as a message, life as a bridge between worlds. And these organisms are waking now, carried through the subterranean rivers as the ancient system reactivates. The Great Convergence is the reunion of all the architect's mechanisms, architectural, biological, astronomical, and geological, designed to awaken during the warm age of the next cycle. But what is the purpose of this awakening? The shard reveals more clues. Within its fractal matrix lies a series of symbols forming a sequence of cause and effect. Thaw, reveal, activate, remember, prepare. Humanity is now between reveal and activate. Antarctica is not simply showing us its past. It is preparing us for our future. But there is a warning encoded in the deepest fractal layers, a pattern so subtle it almost went unnoticed, a distortion, a break in the harmonic sequence, a symbol that does not match the others, a spiral collapsing inward, representing not growth, but implosion. The architects faced this collapse. Their world ended because of it, and they built an archive to prevent the same fate for the next species. What was the cause? What force destroyed their civilization? What cycle returns now? The shard gives only a fragment. When the sky turns and the earth trembles, the children of the next sun must be ready. The Great Convergence is a countdown, a preparation ritual, a mechanism awakening in anticipation of something enormous, something the architects saw coming, something they did not survive, something Earth itself remembers. And as Antarctica continues to stir, we move closer not just to understanding their world, but to confronting our own destiny in the cycle that returns. The next block will take us directly into the final activation sequence, the moment Antarctica begins revealing its deepest truth, what truly ended the last age and what is returning now. Because as Antarctica continues to awaken, not randomly, not chaotically, but through patterns encoded by a civilization far older than humanity, we begin to see the outlines of a truth so immense that it eclipses everything we thought we knew about Earth, about history, and about our place in the cosmic order. The architects did not build their continent-spanning mechanisms merely to preserve knowledge. They built them to survive something catastrophic, something cyclical, something that comes at the turning of the great year. And now, as the Great Convergence accelerates, the ancient system enters its next phase, the final activation sequence. This sequence begins in a place almost no one expected, the Ellsworth Mountains of western Antarctica. These mountains, thought to be simple geological remnants from the breakup of Gondwana, suddenly begin vibrating with the same harmonic frequency detected in the foundation chamber. Sensors placed on their icy peaks capture rhythmic pulses so powerful that the waves travel through the crust for thousands of kilometers. The pulses synchronize perfectly with the subterranean ocean currents, creating a resonance chamber beneath the continent, a chamber that behaves like a planetary instrument being slowly tuned. The mountains are singing, and as they do, something extraordinary happens. Ice caves beneath the Ellsworth Range collapse in specific patterns, revealing tunnels that spiral downward into geometries identical to the labyrinths found beneath Princess Elizabeth Land. These tunnels were not carved by ice. They were carved before the ice. They form a vast descending helix that leads to a chamber shaped like an enormous cone, a cone whose tip points directly to the core of the Earth. This chamber was deliberately constructed to focus seismic energy, channeling vibrations into a single point deep beneath the crust, a funnel, a conductor, a bridge between the surface and the heart of the planet. At the base of the cone lies a circular platform composed of the same impossible material found in the monolith, ultra-dense, metallic, resistant to heat, pressure, and time. The platform contains grooves arranged in concentric rings, like a record waiting to be played. When the seismic pulse reaches the chamber, the rings vibrate, producing frequencies so low they can barely be measured. These frequencies match the patterns inscribed on the shard. They match the diagrams found in the Southern Archive. They match the harmonics of ancient monuments worldwide. This is the activation key. The architects built Antarctica not only as a repository, but as a global tuning device, a mechanism designed to interface with the Earth itself, to stabilize or amplify certain planetary conditions during the Great Turning. But why? What force could be so catastrophic that it requires an entire continent engineered to withstand and respond to it? The shard gives another fragment. The sky burns, the seas rise, the magnetic heart falters, the world turns over. This is not myth. This is description. The architects were warning about a geophysical event, a rapid, violent shift in Earth's magnetic field and axis, a true pole shift. Not the slow drift we measure today, not symbolic myth, but a literal displacement of the crust and magnetic poles, triggered by cosmic forces that arrive with the precessional alignment. The architects survived the first shift, barely. Their world changed overnight. Temperate regions froze, tropical regions burned, oceans lifted and flooded entire continents. Wind patterns reversed, civilizations collapsed. But the second shift came faster, more violent, more unpredictable. Their mechanisms activated, but not in time. Their continent was swallowed by ice, their cities entombed, their oceans frozen, their species dispersed or extinguished. But they left behind the sequence. They left behind warning systems. They left behind structures designed to activate at the next turning. And that turning is happening now. Humanity has caught only the surface symptoms. Unpredictable climate, oceanic instability, weakening magnetic protection, shifting poles accelerating each year, cosmic radiation increasing as the magnetosphere thins, solar cycles behaving erratically. But beneath Antarctica, the architect's mechanisms are responding. The foundation chamber pulses more strongly. The Southern Archive's celestial wheel glows faintly in infrared. The subterranean ocean churns with synchronized currents. Microorganisms awaken with genetic messages encoded inside them. Seismic frequencies align with cosmic bursts, and the shard's warnings match present-day measurements with eerie precision. The architects prepared Antarctica to guide the next species, humanity, through the same catastrophe they faced. But guiding is not preventing. Their message is not stop the cycle. Their message is survive it. And the final activation sequence reveals the most startling truth so far. Antarctica is not simply waking, it is preparing to communicate. Deep beneath the continent, the foundation chamber's pulses shift from simple seismic vibrations to complex harmonic waveforms. These waveforms travel through the crust, the ocean, and even the ionosphere. Instruments detect patterns encoded into the waves, patterns that resemble language. The architects are speaking, not through beings, not through technology as we know it, but through the Earth itself. Each pulse carries a message, a warning, a blueprint. And now, for the first time in 100,000 years, the harmonic sequence begins to take shape. For the first time in 100,000 years, the harmonic sequence begins to take shape. A message not spoken in words, not etched in stone, not carved into walls or inscribed on tablets, but resonating through the earth itself, encoded in frequencies that pass through rock, ice, water, and sky. It begins as a tremor barely detectable by human instruments. Then the tremor becomes a pulse. Then the pulse forms layers, tones upon tones, harmonics upon harmonics, stacked like chords in a cosmic symphony. And slowly, impossibly, the message emerges. Across the world, sensors in Antarctica, Chile, Tasmania, and South Africa record the same pattern at the same instant, a pulse traveling not on the surface, but through the very body of the planet. It moves with purpose, with precision, with memory. When the data is translated through the fractal keys found on the shard, the harmonics resolve into meaning. The message is brief. The message is clear. The message is ancient. Prepare for the return of the turning. The world must remember. The world must endure. At first, scientists argue over the interpretation. Perhaps the harmonics are geological. Perhaps they're coincidence. Perhaps the meaning is invented by human minds desperate for pattern. But then something astonishing happens. Something that leaves no room for doubt. The foundation chamber pulses again. This time the frequency is higher, sharper, focused, and the message expands. The sky will shift. The magnetic heart will weaken. The oceans will change their paths. The earth will seek a new balance. This is not prediction. It is recollection. The architects are telling us what happened to them, what shattered their world, what entombed their continent, what forced the survivors to flee north to seed the earliest human cultures with fragments of their knowledge. Then comes the final line, the one that freezes every researcher who hears it. The next turning is not a fall. It is an awakening. This line defies everything we assumed. The architects did not see the great turning as only destruction. To them, it was transformation, a rebirth of the planet, a reorganization of life, a resetting of the cosmic clock. Civilizations rise and fall not because they fail, but because the Earth shifts its rhythm, forcing evolution, migration, and renewal. The architects survived the first shift. They built mechanisms, monoliths, rings, archives, subterranean cities to preserve their knowledge. But the second shift destroyed them before their mechanisms could fully activate. We are the inheritors of what they could not complete. And now, as the skies change and Antarctica awakens, the architect's message grows louder. More pulses follow, each more complex than the last. The next harmonic reveals a map, a projection of Earth not as it is today, but as it will be during the next turning. Coastlines transformed, rain belts reversed, deserts blooming, frozen lands thawing, equatorial regions shifting, ocean currents rerouting through channels unseen for millennia. And at the center of this new world, Antarctica stands green again. The great continent, once buried in ice, returns as the cradle of a new climatic age, just as it was before the last freeze. But the architect's message is not simply about geography. Embedded within the harmonics is another sequence, a biological signature. a resonance connected to the engineered microorganisms found in the subterranean ocean. These organisms, awakened by geothermal pulses, contain encoded adaptations, genetic tools designed to help future species survive radical environmental shifts. The architects used life itself as a storage device, a survival mechanism, a memory capsule. The microorganisms begin to spread through melting channels, carried by water, by wind, by migrating animals. Their DNA interacts with existing ecosystems, awakening dormant traits, accelerating resilience in the face of climatic instability. It is subtle, slow, natural-looking, but unmistakable. The architects are helping the Earth evolve again, and this brings the message to its final revelation, the part humanity fears the most. The cycle is not against you. The cycle is for you. Endure, and you become the next keepers. The next keepers. The next civilization to inherit the knowledge, the mechanisms, the responsibilities left behind by those who came before. Humanity was never meant to be the first, and humanity is not meant to be the last. We are the bridge, the turning point, the species chosen by time, climate, and cosmic rhythm to awaken the archive and decipher the message of the southern continent. But there is one final harmonic still undecoded, a frequency buried deeper than the rest, a whisper hidden beneath the thunder of the seismic waves. When isolated and translated, it forms a final line. The gate will open when the sun returns to its first position. A gate, not metaphorical, not poetic. A literal mechanism, one hidden beneath Antarctica, sealed for 100,000 years, waiting for the warm age to reach its zenith. The ancient system is preparing to open it. What lies behind the gate? A chamber, a vault, a machine, a memory of the architects themselves. The next block will take us into the deepest revelation of all, the opening of the Antarctic gate, and what the architects left for the world that would follow them into the next age. A gate sealed for 100,000 years, a gate built by a civilization older than our species, a gate encoded in harmonics, hidden beneath miles of ice, waiting for the sun to return to the same celestial position it held during the last warm age. And now, the Earth has reached that alignment. For the first time since the architects walked the green valleys of a temperate Antarctica, the angle of the sun over the southern pole matches the precise geometric conditions recorded in the harmonic sequences of the foundation chamber. And as the sun's rays strike the Antarctic plateau with that ancient alignment, the pulses begin again. But this time the harmonics change. No longer simple waves, no longer warning tones, but layered frequencies forming spirals, arcs, and rotating patterns, as if the continent itself is solving an equation carved into its bedrock. The shard from Dome Sea vibrates in resonance. The microorganisms in the subterranean ocean align their bioelectric impulses. The rings beneath the southern archive and thwaites oscillate in unison. The monolith deep beneath the Gamburtsev Mountains emits a pulse stronger than any recorded before. All of them, every mechanism, every node, every chamber, focus their harmonics on a single point, the foundation chamber, and the gate begins to unlock. The seismic sensors detect a deep shift, not a collapse, not a quake, but a controlled release, as if the bedrock is moving according to a blueprint designed long before the Ice Age began. A circular region beneath the central monolith starts to lower, layer by layer, like an ancient elevator descending toward the heart of the Earth. The cavern beneath the cavern, the foundation chamber's hidden core, expands outward in a perfect, spiraling geometry. For the first time, the lower chamber becomes visible through seismic tomography. What it reveals shatters everything we believed about the architects. At the center of the chamber stands a structure unlike anything on Earth, a colossal wheel carved into the bedrock, 40 kilometers across, marked with concentric rings that match the frequencies found in the shard. It is not a symbol. It is a device, a planetary-scale mechanism designed to interface with the Earth's rotation, magnetic field, and crustal resonance. The Antarctic Gate is not a doorway in the human sense. It is a planetary switch, a mechanism built to activate only at the convergence of cosmic cycles. But what does it do? The next harmonic reveals the answer. To heal the world in the turning, to shelter what must survive, to open the path for those who come after. The gate stabilizes the turning. It does not stop the catastrophe, for the architects learned that no one can halt the cycles of Earth and Sun, but it can mitigate the effects, prevent total crustal displacement, reduce magnetic collapse, regulate geothermal surges, balance oceanic upwelling, preserve regions for continued life. The architects did not fail. Their mechanisms did work. They slowed the collapse long enough for survivors to escape, long enough for knowledge to spread, long enough for the next civilization, us, to rise. But this time the gate has one additional purpose. When the architects realized they would not survive the second shift, they encoded a final protocol into the gate, a repository of everything they knew. And when the harmonic alignment is complete, the gate will open a chamber that has been sealed since the last warm age, the memory vault. The vault is described in the shard's deepest fractal layers, an underground library composed not of books or symbols, but of crystal matrices capable of storing information at atomic resolution. Knowledge of astronomy, biology, engineering, geology, mathematics, genetics, all preserved beyond the reach of time. This vault contains everything the architects learned over tens of thousands of years. Not just their history, but their science, their discoveries, their failures, their warnings, their instructions. It is a gift for the next keepers of Earth, for us. But the gate is not yet fully open. The harmonic pulses accelerate. The southern continent vibrates at frequencies never before recorded by human instruments. Auroras bloom overhead in brilliant patterns, matching the geometry of the southern archive. The subterranean ocean glows with bioluminescent organisms, awakening in synchronized waves. Everything is building toward a single moment, the moment the gate completes its activation and the vault opens. But the architects left one final warning. The shard's last symbol, decoded only now through the gate's harmonic resonance, reveals a message written in both geometry and time. Open only in balance. Seek the vault only if the world is ready, for with knowledge comes power, and with power comes the next age. The architects understood something profound. Knowledge alone can destroy as easily as it can save. Humanity must be wise enough to receive the vault and humble enough to accept the responsibilities it carries. Because the vault does not simply store information, it stores the blueprint of a civilization that reached heights we have not yet imagined and lost everything when the cycle turned. If we are not ready, history will repeat itself. But the gate is moving, the vault is awakening, and the harmonics now align perfectly with the sun's position over the southern horizon. The next block will take us inside the unlocking vault, into the heart of the Antarctic mechanism, where the architects left the legacy of the world before the ice. The legacy of the world before the ice. The legacy of the architects. The legacy of a civilization that rose during the last warm age, thrived beneath southern skies, and vanished beneath a cataclysm humanity has only begun to comprehend. And now, for the first time since that ancient world fell, their vault awakens. As the Antarctic Gate descends into its final alignment, the foundation chamber vibrates with a harmonic sequence so powerful that instruments on every continent record the resonance. It is no longer a tremor. It is no longer a whisper. It is a voice, one speaking across a gulf of 100 millennia. Deep beneath the Gamburtsev Mountains, beneath the monolith forged from impossible materials, beneath the rings that channel energy through the continent, lies a chamber that no eye, human or otherwise, has seen since the last age. The vault of the first memory. Its existence was hinted at in the shard, implied in the southern archive, and encoded in the harmonic pulses. But until now, no one understood what the vault truly was. The vault is not a burial chamber. It is not a tomb. It is not a prison. It is an ark of knowledge, a repository of consciousness, preserved through resonance patterns, stored in crystalline matrices grown directly into the bedrock. When the gate reaches its activation threshold, the vault responds. The ice above the foundation chamber shakes as a vast circular lid, once seamless, indistinguishable from stone, begins to move, slowly, silently, with a precision that defies human engineering. The circular lid rotates, then lowers, revealing a spiral descent glowing with faint blue luminescence. Not electrical light, not chemical light, but bioluminescent organisms, the same archaic microbes found in the subterranean ocean, coating the inner walls of the newly opened passage, each pulsing gently as if alive with memory. As the chamber deepens, the harmonics intensify. They form rhythmic patterns, tones that resonate in the bones, vibrations that bypass the senses and speak directly to the mind. This is not sound. This is communication. The vault is speaking in the only language that can endure across ages: frequency. Sensors lower into the chamber reveal a vast, circular hall carved from translucent stone, its walls embedded with crystalline columns arranged in spiral patterns. Each column vibrates. Each vibration carries data, encoded not in words or symbols, but in atomic oscillations. This is the architect's archive, a library not of paper, but of light and resonance. The crystalline columns act as memory cores, each storing vast amounts of information, more than all digital libraries on Earth combined. But they cannot be read through simple instruments. They require a key, a harmonic input, a frequency, and that key is the shard. When exposed to the chamber, the shard begins to resonate violently, its fractal patterns glowing with inner light. It vibrates at a frequency that forces the crystalline columns to respond. One by one, they awaken. They begin projecting harmonic patterns into the vault's air, creating waves of energy that interlock and form structured fields. At the center of the chamber, the energy gathers into an image, a holographic construct not of light, but of vibrating air itself. The architects appear, not as living beings, but as silhouettes composed of swirling resonance, their forms shifting between geometric stability and the fluid dance of energy. The vault has reconstructed their likeness from their recorded harmonics. This is the first memory. A voice emerges, not a spoken voice, but a synthetic harmonization of frequencies shaped into meaning by the vault itself. And the message begins. We were the keepers of the southern sun. We were born of warm earth and quiet seas. We built our cities in the age of open sky. The architect's history unfolds as the chamber pulses with growing intensity. They describe a world where Antarctica was lush, forested, and alive, a land of long summers and fertile valleys bathed in gentle light. They describe their rise, gradual, guided by observation and balance, never seeking conquest, never venturing beyond their continent until the cycles forced them to. Their technology was not mechanical, not industrial, not based on metal or fire. It was based on resonance, the manipulation of frequencies, the shaping of matter through vibration, the growth of crystalline structures that acted as both machines and memory. Their cities glowed with harmonics. Their temples tracked the stars. Their oceans carried engineered organisms that stabilized ecosystems. Their archives recorded entire histories in the oscillations of quantum lattices. They were advanced, but not in the way humanity defines advancement. Their power came from understanding the rhythms of the earth and aligning their civilization with the cycles of the cosmos. And then the first turning came. The vault shows the sky twisting, the magnetic field collapsing, the continents trembling, the oceans rising into storms. The architects survived, barely, and they knew it would return. So they built the Antarctic mechanism, the gate, the archive, the labs beneath the ice, the resonance chambers, and the foundation itself. all to prepare for the second turning. But the second turning came too swiftly, too violently. The poles shifted faster than predicted. The flood surged higher. The ice advanced more quickly. Their mechanisms activated, but not in time. Antarctica froze. Cities collapsed. Knowledge was lost. Only fragments remained. The shard, the microorganisms, the crystalline memory cores, and a few survivors who fled north. Then the architect's silhouette speaks again. We did not vanish. We became memory. We became resonance. We became the warning you now hear. The vault's energy intensifies. The harmonics shift. The projections dissolve. Then a final message forms. The third turning has begun. The world must decide its path. The vault will open fully only when balance is restored. The vault darkens. The harmonics fall silent. The gate awaits the next step. Because the vault of the first memory is only the first chamber. Deeper within the earth lies a second vault. One older, one more guarded, one that contains the architect's final secret. And the next block will bring us to the threshold of the deepest truth Antarctica has ever concealed. Deeper within the earth lies a second vault, older than the first memory, older than the monolith, older even than the architects themselves. A vault that the shard mentions only in fragments. A vault that the harmonics whisper about in incomplete sequences. A vault the architects referred to in their final recordings as the heart of the world before. For generations of researchers, this phrase was dismissed as symbolic, a metaphor, a poetic flourish from a civilization that fused science with spirituality. But as the Antarctic gate lowered and the first memory awakened, that phrase gained a new and terrifying clarity, because the harmonics from the foundation chamber did not stop when the first vault opened. They deepened. They grew slower, lower, more resonant, as if calling something buried far beneath even the ancient chambers. And then a new frequency emerged, one not recorded in any of the shard sequences, a frequency that did not match the architect's patterns, a frequency older, more primal, almost planetary. When mapped onto the geometry of the Southern Archive, this frequency pointed to a location no one had ever considered part of the Antarctic mechanism, the South Pole itself. Not the geographic pole as we know it today, but the true southern axis as it existed before the last crustal shift pulled Antarctica into its current position of darkness. The architects had buried their oldest, deepest vault not beneath mountains, not beneath ice, but at the point where the Earth's axis once intersected their ancient sky. The original South, the place they believed the world received its first breath of order. What lies there now is hidden beneath more than 2,500 meters of compacted ice, in a region where the cold is absolute and the silence feels sentient. It was once thought empty, featureless, devoid of anomalies. But now, the pulses of the foundation chamber have awakened something below the ice, something circular, something metallic, something humming with frequencies so low they pass directly through stone and rise through the crust like a ghost. And then, in an event that shook the scientific community, satellites detected a heat bloom emanating from the region directly beneath the ancient pole, a bloom that formed in the shape of a perfect spiral, a spiral identical to the architect's symbol of turning. The world watched in awe as the spiral expanded over several days, melting an ice cavity that revealed a vast, smooth surface below, a structure, a dome, an enormous hemisphere crafted from the same shimmering material as the monolith, but polished to an even higher degree, a surface smooth enough to reflect seismic waves like a mirror. This was the second vault, the vault beneath the vault. This was no archive of knowledge. This was the origin. When the foundation chamber pulsed again, the dome responded, its entire surface vibrating as if it were a single instrument. Sensors detected harmonic patterns that matched none of the known sequences. Not the warm age cycles, not the resonance wheels, not the tuning mechanisms. These frequencies were not warnings, not instructions, not memories. They were introductions, A message formed within the harmonics, translated slowly through the lens of the shard. You have awakened the first memory. Now you approach the source. The architects, in their crystalline recording, had said they were not the first. They spoke of worlds before their own. They referenced cycles of civilizations stretching back through ages we do not remember. We always assumed this was myth, symbolism, spiritual language woven into their science. But the second vault tells another story, a deeper story. A story that begins long before the architects built their shining cities in the green valleys of a warm Antarctica. A story of another world, another age, another kind of intelligence that shaped the Earth when it was still young. When resonance analysts compared the dome's frequency to known cosmic signatures, they discovered something astonishing. The pattern was not geological, not biological, not architectural. It was mathematical. A sequence found not in nature but in the background structure of the universe. It matched the frequency of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the cosmos, the first atom, the first note in the universal song. Why would the oldest vault in Antarctica broadcast the harmonic signature of hydrogen? Unless it was built not by the architects, but by something older, something that understood the universe at its most fundamental level, something that taught the architects what they knew, something they called the first ones. The shard mentions them only 3 times. Each reference is cryptic, fragmented. The first ones walked before the turnings. The first ones shaped the mountains of the south. The first ones lit the dawn of memory. We assumed the architects were speaking metaphorically, but as the dome awakens, it becomes clear. They were recording history. The architects were not the first. They inherited something, just as we now inherit from them. The vault. Beneath the vault is not an archive of the architects, it is the archive of the first ones. As the dome's vibration intensifies, a spiraling crack appears on its surface. Not a fracture, but a deliberate seam, a doorway. The seam expands, not violently, but gracefully, as if responding to a command issued thousands of years ago. The interior of the dome glows with phosphorescent light, revealing a chamber so vast that drones cannot map its far walls. The chamber extends downward in layered terraces that spiral like a nautilus shell toward an unseen center. Each terrace is lined with towering crystalline pylons, structures far older than the architect's archives, radiating frequencies beyond our comprehension. This is the deep memory core. This is the root archive of Earth's forgotten epics, a record not just of one lost civilization but of many. The vault begins projecting harmonic flashes, each one forming a momentary image in the vibrating air, a world before humans, a world before the architects, a world shaped by beings who understood the earth as an instrument to be played, a canvas to be inscribed, a living, resonant entity. The images show vast structures built of crystal and sound, cities that shaped clouds, monuments that tracked the heartbeat of the planet, organisms engineered to carry memory, resonant towers reaching toward the skies as if speaking to the stars, and then a darkness, a collapse, a cycle older and more violent than even the architects remembered. The first ones vanished. The architects rose. The architects fell. And now it is our turn. But the vault has one final message, one it releases as the harmonics reach peak resonance. The turning is not the end. It is the passing of the torch of knowledge, the torch of survival, the torch of responsibility. The second vault was not meant for the architects. It was meant for us. The next block will reveal what the first ones left for the future, the final revelation buried at the core of the world before the ice. We descend now into the deepest chamber of the Antarctic continent, the innermost sanctuary of the first ones, the progenitors of the architects, the originators of the harmonic technologies that once shaped Earth like a living instrument. The spiraling terraces of the second vault curve downward into a void so vast that it feels less like a chamber and more like a hollowed-out planet, a cathedral beneath the world, older than the crust above it, older than the oceans that carved the continents, older than the civilizations that rose and fell beneath prehistoric suns. At the bottom of this ancient spiral stands the object the architects never spoke of directly, the object mentioned only in broken fragments of their crystalline memory records, the seed of continuity, a sphere, smooth, black, mat-like, cooled obsidian yet warm to the touch in defiance of the chamber's icy air. Its surface is etched with fractal currents that shift subtly like living circuitry. It is alive, not biologically alive, but resonantly alive, humming with an energy that slides beneath human perception. The harmonic key from the shard activates as the sphere is approached, vibrating in short pulses that match the sphere's inner rhythm. Then the vault responds. The chamber hums. The crystalline pylons light one by one. The floor vibrates in spiraling waves. At last, after 100,000 years of silence, the sphere opens. Not with mechanical seams or sliding panels, but with a fluid unfolding of its own fractal geometry. The outer shell blossoms inward like a flower of dark light, revealing what lies at its heart. A matrix of luminous filaments holding a single crystalline core suspended in mid-air. The core is small, no larger than a human heart, but it pulses with a rhythm so deep that it resonates in the bones and in the air and in the chamber itself. Then a voice, not ancient, not distant, not filtered through harmonic distortions like the architect's memories. This is new, clear, direct, real, a voice carried by the sphere itself. If you have reached this vault, you are the next keepers of the world. The words vibrate through the chamber like the breath of the continent itself. We are the first ones. We were here before the cycles. We guided the turnings. We prepared the architects. And now we prepare you. The chamber brightens as luminous filaments shift in complex rhythm. Images form in the vibrating air. A world of molten seas cooling into the first continents. A young Earth shuddering with magnetic storms. Early life struggling in tidal pools. The first ones were not a species as humanity understands species. They were a convergence, a fusion of biology and resonance, light and matter, consciousness and geometry. Not gods, not extraterrestrials, not spirits. They were the first intelligence to arise naturally on Earth, evolving not from apes, nor reptiles, nor microbes, but from the planet's own harmonic field, the same field that still lives in the Schumann resonance, in the magnetic breath of the poles, in the seismic heartbeat of the crust. They were born of Earth, as Earth's first voice. Their cities were not built on the land. They were the land, grown from crystal matrices and resonant minerals connected directly to the planetary field. But they were vulnerable to the same cosmic cycles that govern all life. The first turning came. Their resonance weakened. Their civilization collapsed. But they survived long enough to seed the architects, a biological species engineered with hybrid traits, capable of building physical structures where the first ones could not. The architects inherited the vault. They built the Antarctic mechanism. They preserved the first memory, but they were not ready for the second turning. Humanity now inherits what the architects could not complete. The sphere's voice deepens. The third turning will not destroy you if you choose the path of balance. The sphere reveals a sequence, a series of frequencies, mathematical harmonics designed to stabilize the magnetic field, to reduce crustal displacement, to maintain a balance between warming oceans and shifting climates. These harmonics can be translated into technologies far beyond anything humanity has built: climate stabilizers, geothermal regulators, planetary resonance amplifiers, a blueprint for surviving the turning not through fear, but through alignment with Earth's natural rhythms. And then the final revelation emerges. The sphere releases a final pattern, a pulse that echoes through the entire vault, up the terraces, through the foundation chamber, into the monolith, into the rings of the southern archive, into the subterranean ocean, into the ice itself. A unifying signal, a reset, a reminder. You are not the first world. You will not be the last. The cycle turns. The ice remembers. The earth endures. The chamber dims. The filaments retract. The sphere closes like the petals of a black flower. The vault falls silent again, not dead, not dormant, but waiting for the next keepers to decide the fate of the new turning. And as we ascend from the deepest vault, past the crystalline archives, past the monolith forged by the architects, past the subterranean ocean awakening with ancient life, past the cities entombed beneath the ice, past the mountains that hum with celestial frequencies, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. Antarctica is not the cold end of the Earth. It is the beginning, a cradle, a memory, a warning, a guide, a promise. The architects left us the tools. The first ones left us the origin. The turning has begun, and now it is humanity's time to rise or fall within the eternal rhythm of the world before the ice.